Welcome to Melt. I'm Suresh Venkat. Today we are turning the focus to global advertising network Ogilvy, which won the Network of the Year at the 2022 Cannes Lion. We spoke to Devika Bulchandani, Global President at Ogilvy in Cannes, France, to understand what it takes to build a strong and inclusive creative culture. So let's get ready to melt with Devika Bulchandani. Devika, we've been seeing hoardings of you all over the city of Cannes saying you've taken something called the Fairness Pledge. What does fairness in advertising mean to you?
If you actually think about what we do, and it's important to take a step back, advertising, film, entertainment, they're all mediums of creating the stereotypes that we all deal with. So if you take the context of India, there are so many stereotypes from a gender perspective, right? Which actually now advertising is taking on, be it share the load, be it the work that we've done with Dove right now on how beauty is defined when there's arranged marriages. The pledge I took is a pledge that says that the advertising we will put out in the world will actually fix those stereotypes. Again, we're doing a lot more of that. But in particular, or specifically, I should say, IBM has come out with a tool. They've done a research study that helps us all understand how to mitigate bias and stereotypes when it comes to machine bias, because so much of the messaging that we put out today, through sort of the programmatic world is not cognitive bias, which we do correct now, but it's actually the machine bias. So how do we mitigate that level of the bias? So that's the pledge I took in collaboration with our clients, IBM.
Does it feel good to be back in Cannes after a 2-year break, perhaps? Feels good?
It feels absolutely incredible and exhausting.
Tell us more.
I think my muscle memory for week-long activities with people, with eating, with drinking, obviously, had really gone away because of COVID, because we've been so sheltered.
And it's taken a toll on your voice as well. I see you've been speaking a lot. My question is, what have you been speaking about at Cannes with both your partners and your colleagues? What have the conversations been like?
We've had more clients here this year, and anecdotally, the numbers that I've heard is that there have been more clients than agencies. So more client people than agency people, which is a big shift.
Is it a good thing?
Well, I think there's good and...
it's an inevitability.
It's a sort of an inevitability. It's actually, overall, I think it's good. And then, of course, you have all the tech platforms here, right? If you actually walk on the Croisette or you walk on the beach side of it, you wonder if it's an advertising festival or a creativity festival or a tech festival. Right? Because Spotify and Pinterest and Twitter and then organizations or tech platforms that we're all hearing of for the first time are here. What we've been talking about is how important partnership is, because we've now come back together, right? So some fundamentals, how important the partnership is between clients and agencies for us to be able to do the bravest work, and not bravest work because we're going to win here, but brave work because bravery in the creative product actually has commercial interest, right? So we talked a lot about that. Inspiration. Everybody wants to win. I always say human beings wake up in the morning not saying, let me be mediocre today. Nobody wakes up and says, I'd really like to be mediocre. Even when you want to rest, you go, I'm going to go and be on the beach for 8 hours and do nothing. You're going to do the best version.
You want to do the best kind of
You want to do the best relaxation.
The best kind of chilling that there is
the best kind of chilling. So we don't wake up in the morning and say, let me be mediocre. We just don't. And what Cannes does is gives us all the forum to actually be inspired to do the best work of our lives.
Okay, let me ask you a follow-up to that, Devika. Various studies show that consumers care more and more, especially Gen Z consumers, about what the brand stands for, right? Both globally, politically, socially, culturally, and less about the actual product or service that they're buying. What does this mean for brands and products? Because does it mean that the product I make or the shoe I make doesn't matter, but the values I stand for matter more than the shoe I make?
No, actually, I'd say it is the connection. So they're saying, do more than just make products, because trust in government is down, right? And when trust in government's down, they're looking to the corporate world and they're looking to brands to say, you have the power to actually change the world for the better and create progress. So it's not that the product doesn't matter. They're actually saying, put the issues that are important to us in your product proposition. So they're asking for sustainable products, not give me a brand layer of sustainability. but embed it into your product
Into the very
proposition,
nature of
into the
business.
very nature of it. Inclusivity in makeup or in the beauty category.
Okay.
Right?
Is this too much pressure to put on brands? Are they up to the task? Because they're in the business of making and selling things. Are they up to the task of being sort of the cultural and social ambassadors and cause ambassadors of the world?
I'd say yes. And the other point I'd just say is if they're not, then they're going to be out of business.
Okay.
I mean, that's just the way the world is headed. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you another follow-up. That our generation, okay, my generation, not ours, sorry. My generation.
I'm Gen Z, by the way.
Right? You're
Just
Gen Z,
kidding.
yes.
No, just kidding.
My generation didn't have that much trust in corporations, right? We thought they were big bad business, they're out to ruin the world. Explain to me why Gen Z trusts corporations more than governments and NGOs, for instance.
You know, I think it's not about trust in corporations. It's actually expectation of corporations.
Okay.
Right? And there's a subtle but significant difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
What they're saying is, what did we do when we vote? When we vote somebody into office or in
We
government,
vote for a set of values or
We
hopes,
vote-
aspirations, who knows?
right? It is that. Because I want fundamental alignment of my values with the world I live in. That's human nature.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the dissonance that I live in a world that doesn't mirror my values or reflect it is a very destructive thing for human beings. So you go, my vote, every time I vote, nothing happens. So now I vote with my
Wallet.
wallet.
Okay. And with your attention and time. these
And my
days, it's
attention
not
and
just
time,
the wallet.
absolutely. Yeah. But ultimately, the attention and time translates to voting with my wallet. Yeah.
All right, Devika, changing tracks. Give us an outline of your key plans as Global President at Ogilvy.
I'm going to say three things, and they're almost going to sound so fundamental in some ways that you'll go, wow, this is it. But I think we often forget the fundamentals, and that's the biggest mistake organizations make because they're so busy recreating the future, but the fundamentals get lost. So one, is a focus on talent. We don't have machines. We use technology as enablers, but we don't have machines, or we don't have a network like a telco company or a fundamental product or a factory. We have talent, and the talent is people. So a massive focus on making sure that we become the place where the best talent in the world wants to come. And that has multiple things. By the way, winning in Cannes is one of them, right? A really important one. Two, a focus on creativity. When I talked about walking on that's great that there's all these tech platforms, right? But all of that gets commoditized. The real force multiplier and the differentiator in a commoditized world for our clients is the power of creativity. And watch, I'm not saying advertising or PR or digital. It is the power of creativity, right? That's number two. And the third, and by the way, these are also very foundational to Ogilvy.
Talent,
These are
creativity.
Talent.
We can
And
see
the
that.
third is constantly innovating to the future. So where's the world going? Where are sort of new technology platforms? What can we do there? How do we make sure that we're constantly innovating so that what we deliver to the consumer is done through the means, the channels, the mediums, the platforms that they're on?
Devika, creativity is seen as this sort of quirky, inconsistent, almost magic-like process that a genius comes up with. But as an agency, you have to be consistent, you have to operate at scale, and you can't rely on random happenstance and magic. So how do you marry these two sort of contradictory forces? You want the magic and you want the quirkiness, but you also want it consistently at scale around the world, borderless creativity, as you call it.
So, it's funny you mentioned this. I was talking to somebody last night over dinner about this and saying, my biggest obsession or job is how do you create a creative culture?
Okay.
Right? To your point, the creative culture is what gives you consistency. So, common ambition. I would say common ambition for 15,000 people. It's actually much easier than we make it out to be. And I always say, we'll debate everything, but there are two non-negotiables for us at Ogilvy. And one of them is the pursuit of greatness. Common ambition. Doesn't matter whether you're an account person, doesn't matter whether you're in PR, doesn't matter whether you're, one of our tech people who's in India or your tech people who's in Dallas. It doesn't matter whether you're on the health side of our business. Doesn't matter whether you're a copywriter. The pursuit of greatness. It was David Ogilvy's 111th birthday. And if there was one man who sort of defined greatness, that was him, right? So pursuit of greatness. And two, doing it with goodness. And I want to talk about doing it with goodness because it doesn't actually mean let's all just be loving. Yes, we should. We should be kind and loving. But you need friction for creativity. If you want to pursue greatness, going to Mars, by the way, nobody knows how to do it. It's not easy. So you need friction. It's not easy. It's chaotic as hell because we want to create things for our clients that have never been done before. Because it's not just about creating a 30-second ad. Every new idea is trying to break boundaries and barriers. So how do you also create a culture of psychological safety? Again, that doesn't mean everybody's fine. I keep saying everything soft has a sort of a edge to it, and that's a good thing. So I always say, what does psychological safety mean? It doesn't mean I can be bad and nothing will happen. It means acknowledging that we will all have bad moments and having the safety to apologize and move on. So we pay a lot of attention, and this is my personal obsession, is how you create that fun, that tension between we're going to be the best in the world, we will be because we deserve to be, because this is Ogilvy, so that pursuit of greatness, but how do we do it in a way where the creative culture is consistent, because the ambition is consistent.
And you're going to be doing all this as we're coming out of a 2-year pandemic, going into a potential recession or a possible recession, and a war that shows no sign of ending. How are you going to pull all this off, your grand plans for creative world domination?
Well, one, I'm really proud to say we are Cannes Global Network of the Year, so we've done it now. Why should ambition change in the face of adversity?
Okay, fair enough.
Right? And I think if we change, if human beings and if the world, if society changes ambition in the face of adversity, we'll never progress. In fact, I say our ambition become even greater. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't understand the macro sort of issues at play. But we still have to make sort of the economy progress. Then we can't just sit back and say, all right, there's a war and there's inflation and there's all these macroeconomic pressures, there's a potential recession. So let's just sit back and say we're going to be mediocre. No, I say in those moments, we buckle up, double down, and break through those barriers and look at those challenges, because once again, creativity will be the differentiator in those moments.
Let's talk about other people who are muscling into the creativity business. Big consulting, for instance, Accenture acquiring Droga 5. So are you competing with big consulting now, or is big consulting trying to compete with an Ogilvy?
I mean, the thing with creativity is we compete with everybody, right? Because there's innovation companies. And in my mind, by the way, if somebody comes up with a new business model, that's a creative venture.
That is, indeed.
Right? If you think about what happens, like one of the things we talk about with IBM, who are clients, is when you think about data strategists and you think about AI people, they are creating new things. So to me, creativity is not some purview just of the ad world. However, we are the only ones that live, eat, breathe, obsess, and think about it all the time. Right? So the more people that do it, I'm like, sure, because the whole world should be creative. It's not it's not like it only belongs to us, but no other industry.
And do you think historically advertising agencies have sort of ceded the problem-solving ground to big consulting or other firms? I remember Rory Sutherland saying that unless there was a media budget, advertising tends not to solve that problem, because only if there's a media budget do you get into it. So have you ceded parts of the problem-solving, let's say, world?
No. Definitively not.
Okay.
I think we've been through some sort of identity crisis as an industry, and I think a narrative has been defined for us. And for some reason, we've taken the back seat or not been on our front foot. We do more work as an industry today, and I'm not talking about just Ogilvy the agent. We do more work as an industry today that has zero media. We solve more problems for our clients today that are business problems, not just marketing and advertising problems. But for some reason, And I think part of it, by the way, we're to blame because we had went through a little bit of self-loathing or something.
Mhm.
I feel very confident about the position that we have in the commercial world and frankly in society today.
So are you saying the advertising industry needs to do a better job of PR for
Absolutely.
the advertising industry?
But also standing up proud
Mhm.
for what we contribute to our clients, what we contribute to the economy, what we contribute to the world. And I don't think there's any other industry that moves commercial interests forward and at the same time is doing so much to move society forward.
And are there any big unexplored or underexplored opportunities that the advertising industry as a whole, not just Ogilvy, should be looking at but aren't?
I think we really need to, and I was getting a bunch of us together. My flight got cancelled, which everybody's flights are getting cancelled here.
Mhm.
So it didn't happen. But what I call the mad women
Mhm.
of Madison Avenue, because to come together to say, no one agency is going to solve it. So how do we create a forum?
Mhm.
How do we create, tackle some issues together? So I'm not going to go into them. I think there are some issues that we need to tackle as an industry together.
And Devika, you've been a big champion of women in the workplace, women of color especially in the industry.
I'm wearing my equal rights t-shirt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how is America doing on that front, the advertising industry?
Not good right now.
Mm.
Generally, we're seeing all aspects of diversity take a step back. And I think the pandemic was a huge factor when it comes to women.
Mhm.
We know that women lost more jobs. We know that some women also opted to stay home because of childcare issues. And probably the
Many
most
women
important.
are doing double the amount of work that they used to do before.
Yeah. So, we've taken a step back, but that's in history. If you look at any issue, you take you take 2 steps forward and you take 1 step back and you have to keep going. And as I always say, we're not going to solve these problems in a 4-year period or it's going to take a generation.
Mhm.
But every time we take a step back, we've got to keep going. We've got to keep going. Personally, I'm a woman from India and I've always been very clear. I left India because I wanted to be an independent woman.
Mhm.
I wanted to work. I wanted to earn money. It was very important to me.
Okay.
So I just make sure that, from a gender, race perspective, we're doing the best we can, which even we're not. We have a lot of work to do. But also to redefine what we mean by equality. And what do I mean by that? There's a fascinating study that I cite all the time that talks about the values of modern leadership. And the values of modern leadership, there's about 10 or 11 of them. Things like collaboration, decisiveness, competitiveness,
Mhm.
Empathy. And then in the same study, they were asked, is this a masculine value or a feminine value? And only 2 of the values were masculine values. So I always say, we'll have true equality when men actually start behaving like women. When empathy becomes equal in both genders. When competitiveness, because that's a male value, becomes equal in both genders. So it's not just about having the right amount of representation on the table. That's step 1. Step 2 is for us to take the gender aspect of it away and look at what are the values that make a difference. And then how do we both come together? And then I can extrapolate this from a race perspective, right, from any difference or any...
And Devika, you're also one of the key brains behind the Fearless Girl statue on Wall Street, right in front of the rampaging bull. What is the significance of that girl standing in the face of that bull? Does that bull represent the patriarchy?
That's me.
Okay, that's you, the Fearless Girl.
The fearless girl was me, as in standing in front of this dominant Indian patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And desperate to break free and to be able to do something and make a mark. But also, it is me because there's fight in it. There's fight in the girl.
There
And
is,
I think
absolutely.
that fight is
and
important.
It makes a spectacular statement.
And
right,
that
on Wall
fight,
Street.
by the way, if I extrapolate it to real life, that fight is important.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because when we lose the fight, and when we accept things, what have we been told all our lives?
Be docile, accept things.
Accept
That's
it.
life.
Grin and bear it is probably the biggest sort of metaphor. And I was told this a month ago in the workplace.
You were told this a month ago.
I was told a month.
Okay.
I was dealing with some issue, and it was like, you're just gonna have to make the most of it and keep doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, thank you.
Okay. It happens to everybody at all
Yeah.
levels, clearly.
All levels.
Okay, Devika, we're almost at the end of the interview. Two more questions for you. When you started your career, you swore never to work in advertising, and yet here you are, global president of one of the world's largest advertising firms. Now, if you could go back 25 years and talk to your younger self, what would you tell her?
Don't make definitive statements.
Yeah, never say never.
Never say never.
Okay.
Because the thing I tell myself is just take it one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one thing I would, like, if I really look back, I didn't believe in myself enough.
Okay.
And I didn't believe in my ability as an Indian woman in the US that wasn't going to go into tech or be a doctor or a lawyer or a finance person. I didn't believe in myself enough. I didn't have the confidence because I didn't grow up in that culture. And our industry is all about culture. So it took me 6-7 years of this sort of just not feeling like I fit in. And I just needed to believe more.
Okay. Final question. Are you up to date with all the latest happenings in Bollywood and cricket?
Cricket, not so much. Bollywood depends.
And your sister works in the film industry.
My
as
sister is a kick cinematographer in India.
Okay.
And she hates me saying this, but she's an underwater cinematographer, which I find mind-blowing as a woman. I think one of only 7 in the world.
Any Bollywood favorite songs, movies, anything that's top of mind right now?
For the last 5 days, we've been playing a lot of Jai Ho for some reason. Yeah. So it's very top of mind.
All right. Devika Bulchandani, thank you for talking to us at Melt. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. If you'd like to follow me, it's @Suvenk on Twitter. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.